Nigeria's power sector is in the news yet again, but this time with a new twist. The Nigerian Senate has just passed the Electricity Act Amendment Bill for second reading, signaling what some are calling an ambitious overhaul of the sector since privatization.
The bill, sponsored by Senator Naya Abaribe, seeks to criminalize vandalism, clarify regulatory rules between federal and state governments, and restructure the Power Consumer Assistance Fund. But will it fix a sector that's 4 trillion naira in debt and still leaves millions in darkness? Joining us for this discussion is energy specialist, Mr. Chinedu Onyebula. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
It's a pleasure to have you as well. The conversation about Nigeria's energy sector, the electricity and power problems we've had, it seems like we're going through rinse and repeat. And many Nigerians don't seem to be very particularly excited about this. But I would ask you, this development, how does it come to you? Do you see it as a means to gradually fixing Nigeria's electricity challenges?
Well, thank you again for having me. So what we've seen is the Nigeria electricity market going through a series of evolution. You may recall that the process first started when the Electricity Power Sector Reform Act was passed, which preceded the privatization process, right? And that act enabled the unbundling of the electricity sector, the selling of the generation and the distribution assets to private sector, and the reformation of the TCN. All this was an attempt to strengthen and enhance the power sector towards greater competitiveness. Now, just a few years ago, the act was amended, and what was passed was the Electricity Act, which one of the provisions was that it gave the states the power, the ability to develop their own markets and to begin to compete in the electricity market. What this new act proposes to do is to make amendments on maybe the shortcomings or the gaps from the Electricity Act that was passed a few years ago.
All right. I mean, it's really great that you've helped us walk through your expectations for that. But, you know, still looking at the potential of this bill and the amendment to the Electricity Act, let's talk about the current administration and your thoughts regarding the role that the current administration has to play when it comes to conversations about power. Because, first of all, we have a Minister of Power who has now announced that he's running for office. He wants to become the governor of a state in Nigeria. First of all, would you say that you've been impressed by his deliverables, how he has handled the electricity and the power sector in Nigeria? And what are your thoughts about him potentially pivoting into becoming or running for the gubernatorial race?
Well, I'll hate to dabble into political arguments or comments. But I'll say this: every administration has a challenge when it comes to the power sector in Nigeria, and you know, having been there myself, right? And one of the biggest or the toughest issues is that this sector has been dominated by the government or by the public sector, and in any economy, it is not sustainable to have the government have total or complete control of the power sector. One, because it is hugely capital intensive, and second, in order for you to attract the right players or the stakeholders in the sector, you need to create the proper enabling environment. So with this current administration, what they've done is built on successive governments, both the success and failures of the successive administrations. The minister has done well, right? And kudos to him on first what he's done to strengthen the off-grid sector. The off-grid sector is creating an enabling environment and increasing access to energy to unserved and underserved areas, mostly in rural communities. Now we can see that access to energy to those unserved and underserved areas has improved or has been enhanced through the activities within the power sector, vis-a-vis the World Bank and African Development Bank, as well as other stakeholders who have provided financing to the power sector in Nigeria to achieve this. Now, on the minister's vision, he is a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he has every right to contest in any election that he deems fit. It would be the people of your states that would do that assessment and assess him whether it is based on his performance within the power sector or assess him based on their understanding of his capacity to deliver in Oyo State.
Okay. Now, Mr. Onyegbula, looking at this proposed bill, this bill that is sponsored by Senator Baribe, what would you say is the key highlight of this bill, and is it the silver bullet that will solve all the problems in Nigeria's power sector? Because you look at things, for example, like seeks to criminalize vandalism. I think the laws of Nigeria as it is today, this should be a crime ordinarily, and it falls under the purview of the Nigerian police force. So I don't think you necessarily need a bill to criminalize vandalism as it is. What would you say are the key highlights? And would this bill, if passed into law, magically solve most of the problems bedeviling the Nigerian power sector?
So there's no silver bullet to solve Nigeria's power sector problem, right? We've had series of policy changes, policy proposals, policy amendments, and that has never really solved the problem. What really is needed in the Nigerian power sector is not just a knee-jerk approach or reactionary approach. It is an intentional approach towards solving the problem. Yes, the policy changes and amendments are necessary because with every sector that you find yourself, especially the power sector, you need to adjust to realities that you find yourself in order to align with global best practices, in order to be globally competitive and attract investments, and in order to advance the sector. So what this amendment does is actually try and attempt towards that, to align with global best practices, to correct some of the errors or mistakes that was made with the previous act that was passed. And when I say correct, because in the process of implementation, you begin to understand or begin to make more sense of how best to implement such processes. So the expectation for this act, I believe, is one to correct that and make the sector a bit more attractive to investors. Now, you mentioned the issue of vandalism. That vandalism has been one of the biggest issues affecting the power sector of Nigeria. And one issue, one problem with that is that when we have such, it affects the viability in terms of the returns or the market returns for entities that have invested in the sector. And when you have such huge shortfalls, it presents a problem or challenge for the market to be viable. And who else takes the burden? It is either the consumer or government, right? And as we speak now, the market shortfall in the electricity sector is in the trillions of naira, and government is currently looking at ways now to pay off this debt and find better ways to shore up the market. So what we see here is an attempt to to regularize or to strengthen and enhance the market towards competitiveness. I'm hoping that the attempt is not just to pass this legislature, but attempts to intentionally follow through the implementation and ensure that it's not just a policy document or a legislative action, but it becomes something that can be followed through to the letter and implemented in such a way that all stakeholders are carried along. The people that are found wanting or defaulting are held accountable, and that processes are implemented in such a way that it should be.
All right. I mean, you've talked about not just being what we have on paper, but implementation seems to be a major challenge. But in 2022, I think one of the good things that Nigerians did cite as something that will benefit every single person was the fact that many had called for decentralization of generation, transmission, and distribution of power. And this actually came to fruition, of course, being removed from the exclusive list. However, it seems like it's quite slow and Nigerians have not really gotten the benefit. How do you think state governors, whom we had thought would grab hold of this opportunity and seek areas where they can actually provide power, at the same time also, make some form of a revenue, as it were, and ensure that Nigeria's old ways of dealing with power issues will be long gone? What's really the delay? What's causing these challenges?
So, I mean, one is a learning process, right? We don't expect dramatic or drastic changes overnight. With the power sector in Nigeria, there's a process, or there's a value chain coordination that happens, which takes a bit of time. One, the sector is capital intensive, and two is that the process to implement such projects takes a bit of time. So, for example, if you're attempting to do a generation project, from project conception to implementation can take you anywhere to up to 3 years to get financial closure and begin project implementation, right? So for a gas-fired power plant, for example, it can take you up to 5 years if you're not careful, just to build a power plant and to deploy it. So the process takes a bit of time. So my caution is that we shouldn't be overly enthusiastic or optimistic. Well, not optimistic, but we shouldn't hold a high expectation on such entities as the states as they transition to this new environment. But I'll say this: that what has happened and will continue to happen will be is a series of attempts to try and get to that perfect place where we want to expect things to be. Some states that are transitioning to their own regulatory entities, some you see they will thrive better than others. Why? Because some states like Lagos, some states like Ogun, right? They have a higher economic potential, or economic productivity barometer, which gives them a bit of flexibility to go into such projects. So you'll see some bit of challenges for states trying to go into this, but I strongly believe that they will adjust and they will find their feet as they transition into their new environments.
Mr. Ebula, there's also this call. I mean, the minister also did mention that he would be needing, Nigeria needs $10 billion to actually fix the power sector. And $10 billion, from my calculation, using 1,600 naira in terms of the exchange rate from naira to dollar, gives you nothing less than about 190-something trillion naira, because he said it's going to be for 10 years. How feasible is this? And where are we going to get the money from to ensure that we fix the power sector? We do understand that we still use some of the old equipment. I mean, you've been there, you've worked with the minister before, the former minister, and I'm sure you do have some insight into this. Is $10 billion annually rife to actually fix Nigeria's power sector?
Well, it is, and this is the bare minimum that is needed or required, right? Because we have a population that is over 100, well, estimates show that we're about, I believe, 200 million, right? And at the moment, the amount of power that we're able to generate, transmit, and distribute is just about 4,500 megawatts on average every day, right? Comparing this to other countries like South Africa, which is just about 40 million, has close to 50,000 megawatts. So you can see the huge disparity between a country such as Nigeria and South Africa. So the amount of money that is being called is the bare minimum. Can it be achieved? Surely. But what I will also caution is that the focus shouldn't be on the money, because or trying to get that money, because you can plug in that money, and if the system or structure that manages the entity is not able to contain it, then we'll still have the same problem. The biggest issues that we have within the Nigerian power sector is not dominantly the financial gap in the capital in capital investments for the sector. It's also a human problem, right? So we talked about vandalism, which has a huge impact on the power sector. We have a problem of human conditioning, where the populace still believe or think that it is the government's responsibility to solve the power sector. Yes, it is their responsibility, but we've had a privatized sector, right? And the question should be asked: why are investors not coming in to bring their funds to develop the sector?
All right.
Own the. Sorry.
Okay, I was going to ask, because you had mentioned what the greatest challenges in the power sector are, saying it's not just about finance, but humans also have a role to play, and then you referred to the infrastructure vandals. This bill proposes a capital punishment for infrastructure vandals. So in 2025, where there are people who are advocating against capital punishment, saying that it truncates fundamental human rights, based on the premise of, it's better for 100 guilty people to go scot-free than for one innocent person to be apprehended, and just basically valuing the sanctity of human life. First of all, how much of a problem is infrastructure vandalism when we're looking at the power sector, and is capital punishment really the way out?
So for example, these instances have greatly reduced. One particular example I remember a few years ago when we were in office was a group of vandals going into a transmission substation worth hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Hundreds of millions of naira then, which millions of dollars, and completely vandalizing the transmission substations and selling the metal as scrap. Now, this was a property or an asset valued in the hundreds of millions being sold as scrap for less than 100,000. And what is the impact of that? Hundreds of thousands of people are without power. You're looking at alternative routes or ways to send power to those people, and they have to reinvest in that asset to make it working again. So when I also say that it is not just dominantly a financial issue, we also need to work on reconditioning the minds of the people to sensitize them on the dangers and pitfalls of such. Right, we need to invest in security to secure our national assets and ensure that no individual has easy access to those assets. We need to create an enabling environment so that when such capital investments are made, the investment of the individuals or the government is secure and guaranteed, and not just open to attack or any such by individuals that try to take advantage of their gross with government to sabotage our collective interests.
I mean, and it's critical national infrastructure, like you said. But let's talk about one of the proposals of this bill. It proposes a forum of electricity regulators and formal recognition of the Nigerian National Electricity Power Council. Are we really solving, because we have regulators already, a number of them, are we really solving coordination problems through the creation of this council, or just creating more red tape and bureaucracy?
Well, I mean, I agree with you that there's a lot of bureaucracy, right? But what I would hope that this bill would do is properly and intentionally align and coordinate the roles and responsibilities of each of these stakeholders and ensure that it doesn't become just hogwash. It doesn't just become another attempt at bureaucracy of creating jobs for the boys. And at this time, before the bill is passed, there's an opportunity for stakeholders, because the process of implementing this bill would create an opportunity for stakeholders to dialogue and engage with the National Assembly as they attempt to pass this bill. So I'm hoping that these issues will be highlighted and proper discussion will be made on how best to align this interest and ensure that there's no duplication of roles and responsibilities by different entities.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your thoughts as well. Energy specialist, Mr. Chinedu Oyebula. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.